Can you pretend to be my boyfriend for a day? She asked, her voice trembling slightly, eyes pleading yet hopeful. That he looked up from under the hood of her car, grease smeared across his cheek, his dark eyes steady and unreadable. That he wasn't used to being asked favors by strangers, especially not by women like her, but something in her tone, something raw and desperate, made him pause, and that single question changed both of their lives forever. The day had started like any other for Aiden, the quiet mechanic who owned the small, nearly invisible garage at the corner of Maple Street. The locals knew him as the man who fixed anything with wheels but spoke little about himself. Nobody knew that behind the oil-stained hands and plain t-shirts hid the CEO of Rexford Motors, one of the biggest automobile companies in the country. He had chosen to live like an ordinary man for a while, to escape the suffocating pressure of boardrooms, fake smiles, and gold-digging socialites who never saw him, only his money. On that particular morning, the sound of a broken-down car pulling into his garage didn't surprise him, but the woman who stepped out did. Her name was Lena. Late 20s, wearing a pale blue dress and heels too fancy for the dusty street. Her mascara was slightly smudged, as if she'd cried recently. She was beautiful, yes, but not in the magazine cover way. She had the kind of beauty that looked fragile yet brave at once. Is there any chance you can fix it fast? She asked, trying to sound calm, but her voice cracked. Aiden nodded, grabbing a wrench. Depends what's wrong. She bit her lip, fidgeting with her purse. Everything's wrong today, she whispered, almost to herself. Aiden glanced at her. You okay? She hesitated, then shook her head, forcing a weak smile. Not really. I know this sounds insane, but, she took a deep breath, can you pretend to be my boyfriend for a day? The wrench slipped slightly in his grip. Excuse me? She rushed to explain. Her ex, a rich, arrogant man named Tyler, was getting engaged that evening. The whole town was invited, including her parents, who had adored Tyler and never stopped reminding her what a mistake it was to let him go. She couldn't stand the pity anymore. She just wanted to walk in with someone who'd make them think she had moved on, that she was happy, and somehow, standing there in his worn jeans and faded gray shirt, Aiden looked like exactly the kind of man who didn't care what anyone thought. You don't have to do much, Lena said quickly. Just smile, stand next to me, act like you like me. I'll pay you if, I don't need your money, he interrupted quietly. When's the party? Her eyes widened. You'll do it? He shrugged. Why not? Everyone needs a little pretending sometimes. That evening, Aiden cleaned up, not in the usual, polished way of his corporate life, but simple, a black button-down, sleeves rolled to the elbows, and clean jeans. When Lena saw him waiting outside her apartment, she blinked in surprise. He looked effortlessly confident, his presence filling the small space around her like calm strength. At the party, whispers began immediately. People stared, curious. Lena's ex's smug smile faltered when he saw her walk in with Aiden's hand resting casually on her waist. This is Aiden, Lena introduced with a bright smile that almost looked real. My boyfriend. Aiden extended a hand toward Tyler, his expression unreadable. Nice to meet you. Tyler forced a laugh. Mechanic, huh? Brave choice, Lena. Best one I ever made, she said smoothly. The words hit harder than she expected, even Aiden's jaw tightened slightly. But through the evening, he stayed beside her, patient, quiet, always exactly where she needed him to be. When people whispered, he'd squeeze her hand. When she faltered, he'd whisper something that made her laugh. For the first time in months, she didn't feel small or broken. As the night went on, Aiden began seeing more of her truth. She wasn't just heartbroken, she was exhausted. She'd given everything to someone who saw her as replaceable, and now she was trying to rebuild her dignity piece by piece. He admired that strength, but what she didn't know, what no one in that glittering room knew, was that the mechanic standing beside her was worth more than every person there combined. When the night ended, and the fake act was supposed to fade, neither of them wanted it to. The next day, Lena showed up at his garage again, this time without an excuse. You didn't have to do that, she said softly. But, thank you. I think you saved me. Aiden smiled faintly. Maybe you just needed someone to remind you how strong you already are. She looked at him, eyes glistening. Can I at least buy you coffee? He nodded. And one coffee turned into hours of talking. She told him about her dreams, opening a small art studio, traveling, finding peace. He told her little bits of himself, carefully avoiding the truth about who he really was. For the first time in a long time, he felt seen. For more than a title or fortune. Days turned into weeks. She came often, sometimes bringing lunch, sometimes just sitting while he worked. He began to realize something: he didn't want to pretend anymore. He wanted to be the person she thought he was, honest, simple, kind, but secrets don't stay buried forever. One evening, Lena stopped by the garage early. She found a luxury car parked outside, the kind that didn't belong in a place like this. Two men in suits stood by it, waiting. When they saw her, one whispered, "Mr. Rexford, your board is waiting." Her breath caught. She turned, and there was Aiden, except not the quiet mechanic she'd known. He looked different now, standing taller, commanding, his voice sharper. He saw the hurt flash across her face before she could hide it. "So it was all a lie?" she said softly. "Even your name?" "No," he said quickly. "Aiden is my name. I just didn't tell you the rest. I needed to live a life that felt real." "Real?" she repeated bitterly. "You let me pour my heart out to someone who was pretending. Do you have any idea how that feels?" He stepped forward. "Lena, the only pretending I ever did was at that party. Everything after that, every moment, was real." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth?" He had no answer. Because he knew, deep down, that he was afraid. Afraid she'd see him the way everyone else did, rich, unreachable, fake. Weeks passed. She stopped coming by. The garage stayed quiet. He threw himself into work again, this time, boardrooms instead of engines, but nothing filled the hollow she left behind. Then one morning, he received a small envelope. No name, just a sketch of a car with a heart drawn beside it. Inside, a note: "You once said everyone needs a little pretending sometimes. Maybe that's true. But I think I'm done pretending now. I miss you." He didn't wait another second. He drove straight to her small art studio, where she stood by the window, painting the sunrise. When she turned and saw him, her brush fell from her hand. "I'm not here to pretend anymore," he said, voice low but sure. "I'm just Aiden. No titles, no company. Just the man who fell in love with you." She stared at him for a long moment, then smiled through her tears. "Then maybe, we can stop pretending together." And as the morning light filled the room, he walked toward her, this time not as a mechanic, not as a CEO, but simply as a man who finally found something real. In the end, the story wasn't about pretending. It was about two people who taught each other what honesty, love, and courage really meant, because sometimes, the best things in life begin with a lie that leads you to the truth.